Juliana, welcome to my Diversity and Inclusion Initiative. It really is a pleasure to welcome you on board.
Thank you for having me here. I'm super excited, and I have been following you on LinkedIn for some time, and probably follow you since the start of this Q&A, and I think it's really great to be part of it.
Thank you so much for your support as well and for your time and being involved. I can't wait to hear your story. So firstly, it would be great if you could please share a little bit more about what it is that you do and also what a typical day as head of product development is like for you.
So I manage a team of product owners responsible to build the data products and services in the data platform stream in Cambly. Besides leading the team and coaching them, I am part of the leadership team that makes sure the decisions are made, but we don't necessarily make all the decisions. So I am often in a lot of meetings helping everyone understand our goals by translating them into product strategies and rethinking the way we organize ourselves as a team and creating the right environments so that the POs can do the best work. And I meet regularly with multiple stakeholders to make sure that we have an aligned product roadmap within Cambly.
What was it about Cambly and this position that stood out for you?
It's my first experience as a head of product. So definitely it is a challenge because it's the first. But I have been in leadership positions before as a product person. But I think for this position specifically was the opportunity to be in a more strategic decision-making position and actually not managing product, but managing product managers.
It's amazing that you get that influence and of course are growing in your position as well. What would you say you enjoyed the most currently about the role?
What I love the most in my current position is that every day is very different. So I don't do any repetitive tasks and I am able to express myself, my ideas, my views, philosophies, and principles. And I see that I can truly create an impact, which is really cool. And I am a very driven and focused on innovation. And I feel that in Cambly, I have the space to influence and empower. I think it's a challenging role, but it's also exciting for me and my career to have this kind of a strategic position now.
Life's all about challenges, right? We have to embrace them. Challenges help us to grow. And what has been the proudest moment for you so far?
So we are in a cloud journey right now, and I have been part of the team that actually took the decision of moving our data platform to the cloud. So this is something that I'm really proud of. But I would say, I think probably my proudest moment so far is that when I see that my POs are developing successful products, because as a team leader, one of my first tasks is actually to get the results and see the results through them. So it's very special to me when I see they developing successful products.
That's so amazing that you truly get the value out of seeing your team grow. I think that's so important. And with the cloud decision, what platform did you decide to go with?
So Cambly is in AWS. In other parts of the company, of the organization, in data platform, we were fully on premise, but we have decided to go with AWS and not embrace a multi-cloud approach right now.
What was it specifically about AWS in comparison to other clouds?
For us in the data platform, we did some kind of TCO assessment with other vendors. So we checked the Google Cloud Platform and Azure from Microsoft as well. But for us, what stood out is that since AWS is so well established in the market, we are, of course, as I mentioned, already using other parts of the organization. So it was easier for us to go that direction. But in the data side of things, I guess the data platform that AWS provides is very mature. And we are very much excited to move forward with the decision and actually start our migration. That's going to be a long journey, definitely.
Oh, amazing. So it's been a successful transition so far. Really great to hear. And on the topic of technology, how would you define your technical expertise?
I have studied a bachelor's degree in information systems when I was in Brazil before I moved to Sweden. And I started my career already working as a data analyst. So I learned a lot about SQL, about databases, which was actually really useful in my journey as a product person as well. And I also studied and did some things in Python, more as a side project. And I have been learning a lot about cloud computing since I've been involved in cloud migration since 2016. So that has a lot on my experience. So especially data platform architectures in the cloud, like data pipelines and data lakes, data warehouse. And also I have been working with some web analytics tools, such as Amplitude, Google Analytics, and internal event tracking. And also I've learned a lot about A/B testing concepts in my journey as a product person.
Nice. And are you still hands-on at the moment, Juliana, at all?
No, unfortunately. I wish I had the time to do it because I think it's really fun. And I think it's really useful when you get to know the data in my domain, for example, to do some SQL queries, but it's very rare when I actually have the time to hands-on right now. So whenever I do is mostly on-site projects that I have.
What do you feel 2021 has in store for the data space, and what technology are you excited about?
There's so much being explored right now in the machine learning and AI side of things. So I'm always impressed on how fast we are advancing. But I'm specifically interested about how AI and analytics is changing, and this concept of developing data as a product to solve employee problems faster and improve productivity is taking shape. So for many enterprises, I think that will mean moving away from making dashboards and pivot tables available for employees and moving forward building like data products for internal usage. I think this is something that's going to be very much on 2021 and of course moving forward, but it's going to be a game changer for many of the enterprise companies.
It's really good to get an insight. How was your journey actually to becoming now head of product? Because I know you started technically, then you moved to product and have transitioned to more management side. So how did that look for you?
I started in the product path in my career when I was working OLX in Brazil in 2016. And I had no idea what I was getting into. So I had to learn a lot by myself on how to be a leader and how to build products. But I feel that also sometimes these tough moments in our careers that we are pushed to do something completely outside the box makes us learn a lot and grow and get a lot of experience. So I think my experience during those years counted a lot to become a head of a department. And I feel that I made some assertive choices in this journey. But I think more than that, I had the privilege of having choices to make in the first place.
What would you say was one of the biggest challenges that you had to overcome?
Looking back, there was a lot of challenges, but I think being a woman of color meant that I had to be twice as good to get half as much. So I think the recognition was something challenging. I felt that many times in my career, I was working really hard, managing teams, being a leader, but sometimes it took me too long to be formally recognized as one. Back in the days, I had a lot of difficulties to speak up for myself and fight for this recognition that I wanted so much. So maybe some imposter syndrome along the way, but I think because of this, I had to learn to speak up for myself, and I think that's the way I actually overcome the challenges that I had.
First of all, I'm sorry you had to experience that. And it's great that now you're in a much better place and that you've fought your imposter syndrome, because the imposter syndrome is very real, and actually over 70% of us will experience it once in our lifetime or career. How did you work to overcome these feelings and get to now where you are?
So first, therapy helped me a lot. And I think this is something that I, of course, highly recommend to everybody. But I think there was a period in my life that because of the recognition that didn't came when I wanted, I always thought that maybe I was not as good for the roles that I wanted to. So I had to work a lot with therapy regarding this, but I also had a lot of support network from friends and people who worked with me. So I had very much good colleagues that gave me feedback, and the feedback was very, very important along the way to understand that it was not on my head. I was actually good at what I was doing. I was just not being recognized. So I think having these colleagues that actually gave me feedback and said, you know what, you deserve more, you need to speak up for yourself, I think it helped me a lot to overcome.
For sure. Like supportive communities are so vital, I feel, for our career progression and development. Surrounding yourself with people that are going to champion you, not put you down. From your side, Juliana, what key skills do you feel are required to succeed in a product role as well? Things like the softer skills, the mindset.
First, a good understanding of software engineering principles. I think even if you never coded before and if you're not a technical person, it's important to understand how the product is built and being able to communicate clearly with your product teams, especially if you're like me that design products for technical users, such as engineers. A technical background may give you both empathy for and a deeper understanding of those users. I think it's essential to be data-driven and proficient in research for a product role. And since interacting with a lot of different stakeholders, a big part of the role, soft skills like communication, time management, and focus is very, very important.
And if we move forwards into now being in leadership, head of product, that is so awesome and incredibly deserved. What values or approach do you feel makes a great leader?
When I look at my leaders, the leaders I had in the past, and the ones that I feel were very, very good in what they were doing, were people who had like a strong human touch. So I think great leaders, they show fear, they should show doubt, vulnerability, but also a passion and joy when things go right. And I think have a strong opinion is part of being a leader, but also be very much adaptable. And for this, they need to be great listeners and use one of the most powerful tools that we have as a leader, that it is asking for feedback and understanding if you are setting the expectations right and if you are thriving in your role as a leader. I think when you are a leader, people who work for you will keep a close eye on how you behave. So it's important to set a great example and lead by example. And also a healthy attitude towards work and be driven, be motivated, and look for signs of burnout in the people who work for you. Take action to help it diffuse it. And finally, the impact that a leader has on an organization. I think leaders have to make sure that the information flows in multiple directions within the organization. Being the reports and being the management team, I think it's part of the role of a leader, of a great leader, is to make sure that the information is spread in the organization in the right way.
That combined, I personally agree with you, makes a fantastic leader. And with that in mind, what one piece of advice could you share for anyone wanting to become a leader or head of product?
I would say, first of all, get yourself a mentor. Get yourself who will help you and achieve your goals and help to set up a path to develop. And I think, of course, developing your leadership skills, find which type of leadership do you feel is the one that matches you. Get as much as experience as you can as a product person. And if you think you are ready for the job, speak up. I think, especially for us women, we feel insecure sometimes when we see a job description as a head of something. And we feel often that we are not prepared for that. And I think in those situations, what I think I would do is to apply anyway. And try your best to actually show that you have the experience required to become a great head of product by showing your background and, of course, showing your leadership skills. And I think, as I said in the beginning, a mentor is somebody that would actually help you to achieve this mission.
So I know that you believe that mentoring is a tool of empowerment and transformational change. So how can you recognize what makes a great mentor?
I think first, mentoring is a very time-consuming activity. So good mentors, for me, are enthusiastic and committed with a mission to help others achieve their goals. They are active listeners, communicate with empathy, and know how to provide feedback. I guess this is very, very important in a mentor. And I think a good mentor is someone that actually creates a strategy to feel the needs and help you to be a better version of yourself and not a clone of themselves. And sometimes this is hard. I have been on both sides, being a mentor and a mentee as well. And I think one of the biggest challenges as a mentor was actually not to put my expectations under the mentee, but actually to understand what is that will make that person thrive and in a better version of themselves, and not a better version of myself. And I think good mentors should understand the limitations, but also motivate you to get out of your comfort zone. But I think above all of this, a mentor should be an expert in the field, and it needs to fit you personally. It's almost a marriage.
As someone who was a mentor, what do you feel you learned from that experience?
I've learned a lot as being a mentor, for mostly because I have tried to mentor people from different backgrounds, and that I mean, in the personal side of people who has nothing to do like with a professional, with a product and tech world, but also on the professional side as well. So I think what I've learned the most is that first, people need to be listened, and they need to be completely onboarded with the mission of being mentored as well. So the commitment goes for both sides. And I know that usually the expectations needs to be aligned in the beginning of the relationship. So you know that you are providing the time and attention that the person needs. And since I had like mentees with different kind of backgrounds, of course, the energy and the effort that I had to put in each one of those mentoring was very different. But I think what I've learned the most is that mentoring is something that changed a lot of people's lives. And I have been very proud to see how the mentees that I mentored actually are now in a much better position, and they are having much better outcomes of the goals that they wanted since the beginning of the mentoring. So I think this is what I learned the most, learned with them. Yes.
I think that is something to be incredibly proud of. The fact that you're having such a positive impact on somebody through mentoring, through coaching and sharing experiences, it's just great. And it's such a powerful tool for you to grow as an individual. What advice can you share when it comes to actually approaching someone to mentor you, for example?
So I think nowadays there are many mentorship networks available online. LinkedIn and other social media can be really helpful, together with going to meetups and events where you can build a network. But I think usually when the word mentor comes to our minds, we have either an image of a person who we look up to, our managers, a colleague, sometimes even a famous like tweet tech celebrity we admire. So my approach on this is that you should ask very openly if they're willing to mentor you. What happens is that a lot of people don't have their experience, but they are really willing to help. So the first time I was asked to be a mentor, I was actually caught with a surprise, like, oh my God, do I inspire someone to be a mentor? But I was also really glad, and I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to be a mentor. But I think together with the mentee, I had come up with a strategy on how to be a good mentor and how to be a good mentee. I can, of course, advertise as well. If you are an immigrant woman here in Sweden, I can, of course, help and offer to be mentoring, or at least I can recommend some of my best colleagues that are willing to help immigrant women here in Sweden as well.
That's so fantastic. And mentoring is one way that you're developing yourself. You also mentioned side projects. How else are you further developing your career?
Right now, in the product side of things, I have been keeping an eye on what's happening, attending meetups and events and conferences. Sometimes, of course, since I am part of a technical stream and a very engineering focused team, I'm always participating in some conferences, technical conferences as well, just to keep up what's happening. And but right now I am focused a little bit more on entrepreneurship, and I'm taking a dream of paper and starting my first nonprofit company with a focus on empowering immigrant women who struggle to find a job here in Sweden. So I think I would say I try to keep an eye on both my work, the one that I do, my full-time job, and as a side project, I am starting my own business, which is really cool.
Yes, I cannot wait to discuss that in more detail with you next week as well, and to hear about the positive impact again you're going to be making on the community. I'm really excited. And with, of course, the keeping an eye on the product side of things, what specific talks or books or podcasts, even courses, would you recommend that have been quite a game changer for your career development?
Product has a lot of Bibles, right? I can, of course, talk about Inspired and Empowered by Martin Keegan. I think it's both books. Empowered, especially, it's a new one. It's from 2020. And I think it has a lot of insights on how to be a better product manager and how to actually build better products with a consumer focus. So I think it's really good. But I personally absolutely love books who challenge our status quo and the way that we organize ourselves in the corporation side. So I can highlight, for example, The 7-Day Weekend from a Brazilian colleague, Ricardo Semler. The focus is about how do we change from working to 9 to 5 to actually work on the weekends and take off days during the week. And it's really cool how he actually says that how can we be productive instead of having a fixed schedule, but also thinking outside the box, and how can we rethink the way that we organize ourselves today. It's really cool. And I also can highlight The Team That Managed Itself by Christina Woodtick. It's also another one about management and about how to empower teams to be completely self-managed, and kind of challenges how do we work with managing people and how the teams can organize themselves as well. It's really cool.
Some fantastic recommendations. Thank you so much. And did you always know that working in technology was what you wanted to do?
No, actually not. I think since I was a kid, I always thought I would be working as a teacher. And I was actually a volunteer teacher for a period in my life. So I was teaching Portuguese in Brazil for a nonprofit company. But yeah, technology, I think it was not something that was the first option for me.
So what do you think actually inspired you to get involved with this, or who inspired you to get involved in this space?
So I would have to say my brother. I do have a brother that is 3 years older than me, and he also works with tech. And since he's older than me, he was in college first. And I think I got super excited whenever he was doing his homeworks and he started to code. And when we had our long night talks, I was totally in. So even before I went to college, I was like sitting side by side with my brother, trying to understand what he was doing. And I got really passionate about it.
Oh, amazing. So you almost got like a sneak peek into what life would be like going into code. That's so awesome that your brother inspired you to make that transition. And did you have any other women role models at all that inspired you throughout technology?
So unfortunately not. And I think one of the reasons is that, especially in Brazil and in the context, I was like on the, I would say 2007, 2006, when I was starting, we didn't have a lot of women in my class. It was basically 2 in college. So I didn't have a lot of role models, women role models or mentors. And this is something that I've been trying to change, of course. I think we are all committed to changing this. But I can highlight that I had an amazing colleague called Renata, and she still inspires me so much. She is right now a product manager working for OLX in Brazil, and we were colleagues there. But I think her life and her strength is something that really, really inspires me.
Oh, that's so amazing to hear. And you relocated, of course, to Sweden. Did you start establishing some influential women when you relocated out of interest?
When I came to Sweden, I guess the reality was slightly different from Brazil. There are much more women here in technology, which is really cool. And when I joined the first company here in Sweden, I met amazing women here. And I think they are still today inspire me to actually integrate more women in technology. So I think coming to Sweden was a game changer for me in that sense. And I feel that there's so much to be done in Brazil as well when I look back. But I think being influenced by this woman actually give us strength to build a community.
Wow, that's so cool. And what actually inspired you to relocate to Sweden? Quite far away, Brazil, Sweden, very different in terms of weather.
I think I was in a period of my life that I was seeking for a change. I wanted to live in different cultures. I wanted to experience how it is to work with a multicultural teams. And Sweden wasn't my first option. I was open for Europe, open for Canada as well. I was pretty much open, I guess, to other countries. But Sweden was something that didn't cross my mind. And I didn't know actually that the tech scene was something so big here as I can see it is. But I received an offer from the first company I came to work with, and when I was in Brazil, and I decided to give it a try since I was so open to tries. And I think it was the best decision ever. I absolutely love Sweden, and I keep thinking that I don't know if I would be so happy if I was going to another place, but I think it was really a good decision for me.
So Sweden has your heart well and truly. Can you see yourself being here long term now? This is home.
Yes, I think speaking about home is very difficult because there is a phase in our lives as immigrants. Well, it's my third year here, so I'm not sure just yet if this feeling is gonna pass. But I feel like when you're an immigrant, home it's not here, but home is not Brazil as well, so it is kind of tricky. But whenever I go to Brazil, I feel like Sweden is home. Whenever I'm here, I feel like Brazil is home, so it is tricky. But of course I can see myself here, and at least I don't do any kind of long-term plans. At least short-term plans, definitely Sweden has my heart.
Good. Well, I'm pleased to hear, and I can't wait until we can meet face to face for a fika as well, Diana, whenever that will be, when all of this is over. So to break it down, how did the process actually look from getting your job offer, being in Brazil, to your first day at work, for anyone who may be interested in relocating?
I received the offer on November 2017. Then I came on January 2018, and I had basically 3 months to move. And it was crazy because it was during the Christmas and New Year's period. And I had an agreement to start with a starting date. And I had to do everything in Brazil. Like I had to sell my car, apartment, and prepare for the big move. And since I moved in the winter here, it was summer in Brazil. So it was really, really hot in Rio, where I'm from, like around 38 to 40 degrees.
Wow.
And when I arrived here in Sweden, there was like a negative temperatures, and it was so dark. But I think the company was really, really supportive from day one. So they made sure I could get an apartment that is quite challenging here in Stockholm. And I think on my first day at work, they gave me a lot of support. They were, of course, very much used to have people from outside Sweden, and especially people who never worked abroad. So I think the welcoming and the first day was really, really great. It gave me a really good impression. And I think first impressions, sometimes they matter a lot. In that sense, it could have been worse, but I think I was very, very lucky and very privileged to have a very good start.
Certainly. It sounds like you had very smooth transition, which is really good to hear. I can imagine it was such a shock to the system, the change in weather, because I've also been to Sweden in the peak of the winter and it's freezing, absolutely freezing. Outside of the apartment searching, which I know your company supported you with, what would you say were the biggest challenges you had to overcome throughout the relocation?
I had no problems at all with the visa and the process of getting here, but I would say the language was something challenging because I had no experience with Swedish at all before. So going to the supermarket, for example, was crazy because everything was written in Swedish, and I was, of course, using Google Translate all the time. But I think this is something that internet helps a lot, of course. I think the hardest part was actually to adapt to the weather and the food. and missing my friends and family. I feel that this is the hardest part when we immigrate for so far away. It's not like I can take a plane and be in Brazil in a short period. It takes I don't know, door to door around 24 hours. So it is really far from Brazil and far from my friends and family, and I really miss them.
I can imagine it's really difficult, and it's not just going to Brazil for a weekend trip. Like you say, it's very far away. With that in mind, how did you then begin to establish a new support system and also begin to build effective relationships?
Work helped me a lot. So since I was working with so many people in the same situation as I was, we were facing similar challenges. It was easier to create a bond with these people. Mm-hmm. And I also have a big community of Brazilian friends here, and some part of them became family. We were so close that I can consider myself lucky that I have a family here. Amazing. And I met them basically going to Brazilian events, sometimes at work as well. But it's great that sometimes it's challenging to create effective relationships and have a support system as an immigrant. But I think it's so important. It's one of the most important things.
So building and establishing that network is one thing. What else would you say are your top tips for settling into a new location and relocation in general?
When you are relocating to a place where you have no idea about the culture and about the history and the language, I think it's very important to start with that and actually try to engage more with the society to feel more included and to feel part of it. I think learning the language is something that opens lots of doors. For me, it's still a challenge with Swedish. I can speak very basic Swedish. I would say like a 3 or 4 years old. but I feel that now compared to when I started the journey with Swedish, it already opens lots of doors. People are usually happy that you are putting an effort to learn the language, and they are much more open to establish a relationship.
So it's all about being proactive in establishing a community, trying to be proactive in immersing yourself in the culture, the language. Like you say, that also is a big bonus. Thank you for sharing, Juliana. And for you as well, how important is work-life balance?
I think it is very important for me, but I feel I have been a workaholic for so long in my life, and I suffered the consequences. And I think that's why I think it's very important to look at this and to actually understand that you need to find the balance, right? So one of the reasons I love living here in Sweden is because I feel here I have much more opportunities, and I have the privilege of having like a better work-life balance than I had in Brazil. In Brazil, I was usually working for 8 to 10 hours. And unfortunately, it's a culture thing that appreciates you when you work more. So it was difficult for me to change my mind. So when I came here, like in my first year, I was very impressed how people were like closing their laptops and going home, staying with their kids and appreciating family so much. And I had a hard time to actually include and understand the mindset. But I think now I'm all into this. And if I ever go back to Brazil, for example, I think I'll probably struggle to have the same work-life balance I had here.
Did you feel a little bit guilty almost at first for closing your laptop and switching off?
Yes, definitely. And I as a leader, I also felt that my team was not committed to the purpose because they were all leaving and closing their laptops. So I felt guilty, but I also felt that, okay, nobody's engaged in the mission and there's something missing. So in the beginning, it was a bit hard to adapt, but now I completely understand. And I don't only understand, but I actually advocate for my reports to have a work-life balance that matters to them.
Well, it's great that you now see the value in that. You've got that sweet spot. And what strategies and techniques can you share that have helped you to maintain that work-life balance, not to fall back into the trap of working late nights?
So one of the first things I did to actually help myself with this was to stop checking on my emails and Slack and all types of messengers from work, outside work. So during the weekends, I tend not to look. When I'm on vacation as well, I tend to turn it off, everything. It's still a struggle because sometimes I like to look here and there how things are going. But I feel that whenever you do this, you actually lose the focus of your vacation, right? You're actually looking at work, and it's hard to not keep thinking about it later. So it's not only the time that you check, but it's also the time that will consume from you after this, thinking about this. And also lately, I have been a big fan of meditation. I think meditation helps a lot with my anxiety wanting to keep track of work all the time. Mm-hmm. And I feel much more focused after I started. Yeah.
Now more than ever, with everything going on in the world, all of the uncertainties, all of this negativity, I think that anxiety is quite a big one as well. I definitely experience it myself. Meditation being one thing, I'm so pleased that that's working for you. Has anything else helped you to calm the anxieties that you can share with anyone going through similar?
Yeah, so I feel exercising as well is really good. I love dancing. So for me, in the dark days here in Sweden of the long winter, dancing is something that I really appreciate to do after work. Right now with the corona, of course, we cannot go to the gym, but I have been trying to work out at home. And I have a group of friends that we do a Zumba together, which is really fun. And helps a lot with anxiety. And I feel that the anxiety of checking social media all the time as well, especially now that we cannot have a lot of social interaction outside the virtual world. What I have done is that I have set up some timer on my phone. So I do allow myself to have like X amount of hours per day of social media, and I try to respect myself. So this is also helping me a lot with the anxiety of keep checking family and keep checking how's everything's going.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. I think social media, if used the right way, can be an incredible, amazing platform, but also can have so many negative implications and effects. If you think of like Instagram as well, and just a lot of negativity that you can see on it. So giving yourself these short segments, I think, is a great tool as well, especially with the lack of human interaction, like you say. So yeah. I appreciate you sharing that, Juliana. And how I like to round part one of the discussion off is by finding out a fun fact about you, and also outside of Zumba and dancing, any other hobbies that you have outside of work.
I really like animes and mangas, the Japanese culture in general. So I watch a lot of those and since I was a kid, so I'm a fan. And also I am a sci-fi nerd. So I was raised by a nerd daddy that actually made us watch Star Trek when growing up. So I am definitely a huge fan of sci-fi. My cat's name is Princess Leia, and on Halloween, for example, every Halloween, at least here in Sweden, I try to go with a cosplay or something, or some funny costume that translates my sci-fi passion.
Oh, I love it. I've got a t-shirt for you, Juliana. It's "May the Stack Overflow be with you." I've purchased one. I'm sure you'll see it on an upcoming episode. So I'll send you the link as well, so your sci-fi geek can come out, because I know mine does when I wear it.
Well, that's amazing. It, definitely.
Have you ever been to Japan out of interest?
No, and actually that's a frustration I have, because I was planning to go last year. I was planning to attend the Olympics, And I am so sad that didn't happen. But yeah, it will happen eventually. So I have plans to go. Yeah,
you'll get there. It will happen. And when you go, I want to hear all about it, because Japan is also on my list of places to go. It looks an absolutely incredible place. Well, thank you so much for your time, Juliana. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you, hearing your story. And I can't wait to catch up next week, where we're going to dive deeper into diversity and inclusion topics.
Perfect. And thank you very much, Ali. And I think it's going to be super exciting to talk next week. I'm looking forward to.
Me too. You take care.